Hey everyone, how is everyone doing today? My name is Gina and I am doing great. So today I wanted to do a art journal page using my art journal that I created a few days ago, the binder, the cinch binder one. And so I got inspired to do this from my Tonic Studio Kit from February. And I immediately, when I saw some of the paper and especially one of the dies, I thought Secret Garden. So that was my inspiration. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a wall right now, and I took a leftover piece of the watercolor paper and I cut it to fit my page, which ended up being like 7.5 inches by 3 inches. And I'm using this paper that looks like it's got texture, bumpy bumps on it, right? And so I was like, okay, this should work out perfect for me to make some bricks with it. So I got out my trimmer and I had to use my rotary one. The other one would not cut that paper because it was so thin. And I just cut out different widths of strips of paper. And then, as you see, I'm just cutting them to look like bricks. So once I get them all cut out, I'm taking my matte gel medium and I'm just adhering them onto this piece of watercolor paper. I do put some on top after I get them all adhered on there, and you know, just to make sure that they stay nice and put. I worried by putting the medium on there if it would affect the texture, and it did not. But I'm making sure that I'm putting the lines staggering. You know how you would actually lay bricks. You wouldn't lay them one upon the other. Now if I were to do this over, I would measure these bricks a little bit better than what I did. Because in the end, the wall, I mean, it looks okay, but it doesn't look as good as what I wanted it to look. And I believe it's because of the lines not being right. So if I, you know, when I make another wall, I will remember that, and I will make sure that I cut the bricks better suited. So that's the die that inspired me, because it's got flowers on the ends of it, little tulips. And again, with that texture paper, I immediately thought Secret Garden. So I'm using some old sprays that I have, dilutions. I'm using the blue, I think it was Lake Blue, something like that, and then Calypso Green. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember the names of them, but they're dilutions. And I'm just making sure that I'm going to not go too far down with the blue, because I do want to have green in there. And you may be wondering, well, Gina, you've built a wall. Why are you putting green down on the bottom where the wall's going to be? You'll see. Well, if you saw the thumbnail, you'll realize why I'm doing that. I forgot how much I really love these sprays, but then I also remembered when I paint a little bit later on that they do reactivate. I forgot about that, but it's okay. It ends up being all right in the end. So I put the blue, of course, on the top for the sky, and then I spray the green down on the bottom, and I'm going to let the green kind of fall down. Oh yeah, I had a little bit of problem with my green there, not spraying, but there we go. So I have it where it's, you know, it's going, and then I actually spray a little bit more at the top, because my vision was I wanted it to look like overgrown foliage, right? Like what you would see in a secret garden. So I sprayed it another time because it wasn't quite dark enough. I wanted it a little bit darker. So I sprayed it again, and then I left it alone. Now I'm doing my stampy stamps that I love to do. I love the stamp. It's one of my favorite. And this stamp also inspired the tree that I'm going to attempt to do. So, but I'm using my archival inks. I also, for the green, I got some Nuvo hybrid ink. I tried that out, first time using that. It seemed to do pretty well. And then I used my StazOn as well because I wanted it a little bit greener. And I've just used my dot stamp down below because again, I want it to look like foliage. So now I'm taking the die and I made it into a stencil that's very heavy cardstock. And I use my little bossing buddy there, my homemade one, and I'm just using the Versa ink to get in there. Now I did not use enough of the ink, and the first time around it just did not look good at all. So I mean, it worked, but it wasn't as solid as I wanted it to be. So I did it again, and as you'll see, I did it probably 2-3 times for each time that I put the stencil on there. Now this did not work out as well as I had hoped it would. I don't know if maybe next time I should have used, because I was going to use the high gloss gel, and I thought I want it to dry pretty quickly. I don't want to have to wait for a long time. And I'm thinking maybe the gel might have worked a little bit better because I wanted you to be able to see you know, the flowers and stuff. That was the whole point of that. That was my inspiration. And it just did not, it didn't work. It didn't work. But, you know, once you do it, it's on there. And it's fine. It's texture. This is an art journal page. It's a mixed media page. So, you know, you do what you do. Now I'm using some Nuvo shimmer spray, I think is what they call it. So I sprayed it on there, hoping it would make that, what I just did, pop. You know, it didn't really. So I sprayed it again, and then I didn't wipe any of it off, and I just let it dry. And it still was not the effect I wanted. So now I'm painting the wall, and I painted it with sand, and then I did some shadow or shading work, floating, by floating some raw burnt sienna on there to try to show you where the bricks would be, like right, like it's mortar. Because I wanted this to look like an old brick, you know, like, you know, old, which you would find in a secret garden. So I did the floating technique here, and this is when I realized, oh my gosh, I did not place these bricks right. I mean, they're almost right on top of each other. So I was a little disappointed, but in the end, you know, it turns out okay, but not like what I really wanted it to look like. So now I'm going to splatter with heritage brick and just lamp black. I just, you know, wanted to, again, I'm thinking old bricks, right? So then my great thought is, which I had already planned, is I'm going to put a hole in this wall so that you're kind of sneaking, peeking inside what this secret garden would look like, right? And so I get my X-Acto knife and I use my Tim Holtz, the little bitty scissors, and I just cut holes just to give us, you know, what we need. And some I made a little jaggy, like they had the brick's still there, but maybe the edges had chipped off. And so I wanted it, you know, to look decrepit, and I wanted it to look cool. So I think I achieved that look. I mean, it is a hole in a wall, and that's what I wanted. And I'm using my Fabri-Tac glue to tack it down because I wanted it to stay put. And then I'm going to sketch my tree. Now I had this inspiration, since this is whimsical, to make a whimsical tree. Now I've never done anything like this before and I will definitely do it again because I really loved it. I enjoyed it. Is it the best? No, not really. I'm gonna be honest, it's a hot mess a little bit, but I had a ball making it. I had so much fun. I think part of the problem is it's too far over to the left. I should have, you know, but I didn't want to put it in the center because I didn't want it to seem like it needed to go into that hole, if that makes any sense. So that's why I shifted it over more to the side. But I feel like it needed more room. It just needed more room. It was like it was squished in there. So, but I loved making this tree. I just love it. I love the thought of it, the whimsicalness of it. Like it's like a hey, a little, you know, twisty, funky tree. And I probably could have kept going on and on and on, and I was like, okay, but I'm trying to make it look full, you know, I'm trying to make it look like it is a tree and that it's supposed to be there. And now I'm going to start to, you know, add some highlights and some shadows to it. So I use traditional burnt umber to do the shading around the trees on the branches and just to give it depth. And then I will end up using sable brown to do the highlighting work once I get to that point. Now I have to let that dry before I can highlight. So now I'm going down into the hole and I'm floating and shading in that with black green. And I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so cool. And then, of course, to set everything into the picture, like I like to do, I float around the wall, and then I'm going to float around the tree as well with that black green, just to make it feel like it's part of the picture, you know, part of the page there. I always like to do that. And now that I've learned how to float, I mean, I'm still not the best at it, but I love doing it. And there I'm doing the highlighting with that sable brown to the tree. It just makes it, you know, seem more like a tree. And looking at the tree, I mean, I still really dig it. I really do. I really like it. But I think if I were to do it over again, not only would I move it over more so it could be more fuller, but I also, like in the trunk of the tree, would have probably put little more squigglies in there too. So, but now I'm moving on to the flowers and stuff that you're seeing in that hole, and I'm just using my stylus, and I'm using just titanium white. And this is when I realized, oh yes, that's right, this ink is going to reactivate, because that white is not like white like it normally would be. So I just use my stylus and the pinks and the reds to make little flowers. And then I get my greens out, and I decide I'm going to put leaves on this tree. Now this is the first time I've ever made leaves this way, where you double load your brush. Like on one edge you put the light color, on the other edge you put the dark color. So it took me a minute to really get the hang of how to do that, but I love it. I think it ends up looking so cute. And where that green had traveled onto the page earlier, I was like, okay, well that kind of looks like a vine, just like hanging down, you know. So I put leaves there. And then I'm going to take some more of that traditional burnt umber, and I'm going to, you know, water it down, and I'm going to end up making vine, you know, to go through that vine. And I will also start adding some little twiggles onto the tree. I mean, I could have kept on and on with the twiggles and with the leaves. I was having so much fun. It was unbelievable. I'm like, okay, but we're getting a little bit out of control here, Gina. We got to settle down. You got to settle down a little bit there, girly. So, but I just love it. I love it so much. It was so much fun to do, y'all. It's just so much fun. And now I'm going with slate gray. No, not slate gray. Payne's gray. And I'm just, you know, setting everything, the tree into the, well, I think I did that before. I set the tree into the page, and then I'm just putting a border around the blue with that, and then back with the black green down at the bottom. And then I just got some Tim Holtz little sticker saying thingies, and added them to the page just to, you know, make it pretty. And then I'm like, you know what, I want this to look like it's got moss or something growing out of it. And so I took some Nouveau Mousse that I had, and I just put it on the wall. And then I thought, I've got some yellow and I got some pink here, perfect to go with my flowers I did. So let me just put those in the trees as well. You know, I don't know what's blooming that looks like that, but in my world, there's a tree that blooms yellow and purple all at the same, or pink all at the same time. Because, you know, I live in a magical world. And then I thought, it needs more sparkles. So instead of getting my glitter out, I just used sequins instead. And I think it turned out super duper cute. I love it. I hope you love it. It fits perfect in the page, back into my book. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making it. If you did, please like it and share it and do all that good stuff. And I will talk to y'all later. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Bye.